Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Jetlagged. I'm your host Elizabeth for today because Noah has lots of stuff to say on this topic and we thought that it would work better for him to be a co-host today. So today I'm joined by co-host Noah and co-host Malia. To start off, what big cities have we lived in?
So we have all, like everyone on the podcast team, including our parents and our team and stuff, have lived in Xi'an, which is it's a very famous city in China. It is an old capital and it is the home to the Terracotta Warriors.
What's the current population of Xi'an and what was the population when we lived there?
When we all lived in Xi'an, the population was about 7.1 million. Now it's grown to about 8.5 million.
Which is funny is because when we lived in Xi'an, when we go back to the States, it would be like, my city that I live in has more people than the state of Indiana or the state of South Carolina. And I'm sure that it depends on the state, but like it was always cool going back to Indiana and being like, we live in a city that's slightly bigger than Indianapolis and it has more people than the entire state. Addie and Elizabeth and I have lived in Chiang Mai, which is a city in Thailand. It is not the capital, though it is a very large it's a very large city that's known for tourists, especially medical tourism. Whenever we went there, it was either for when my mom needed to deliver a baby or we went there for medical purposes like getting vaccinations and checkups. We went there for conferences as well as dental stuff because the Chinese medical system was not that good and we didn't really trust it that much. But Thailand was super cheap and it was really good. So we stayed there a lot. It felt like kind of a second home compared to America because now it's the opposite, but before COVID, we lived in Thailand more than we did in America. And we currently all live in Tbilisi. The whole podcast team lives in Tbilisi, which is awesome.
And what's the current population of Tbilisi?
Right now it's about 1.12 million. It's kind of hard to find the exact population because all the websites, when you look at them, are either from years ago or just not that accurate compared to other websites. So I would say the current population of Tbilisi is like 1.2, 1.3 million people.
Yeah, I think it's especially hard to track because there have recently been a lot of immigrants or political refugees that have come to Tbilisi. So the population it's in flux a lot, especially over the past 2 years.
Yeah, for sure.
So for you two, do you prefer living in the city or in the country?
I think living in a city has lots of advantages. Like you can get around really easily and everything's convenient. But me personally, I would want to live with a little more space and maybe some woods or cornfields, and so you don't feel so cramped, but other people like it. So
I would say for me, it depends on the type of city because Xi'an, Chiang Mai, and Tbilisi are all considered cities, but they feel more of like a city and a suburb combined. Xi'an, there was a lot more buildings and stuff, but the way it was arranged is there are complexes in kind of like a neighborhood in America. But instead of rows and rows of houses, there are rows and rows of apartment buildings. And yes, it felt really crowded and dense and stuff, but I don't know, the culture and the life, the one-on-one that you had with your neighbors and the people in your community was awesome. And the ease of access to grocery stores, public transportation in Xi'an was amazing. So I would prefer to live probably in a city that is similar to Xi'an or Chiang Mai or Tbilisi, but if I could find like a house that is in one of those types of cities, that would be like ideal. But I wouldn't want to live in the country, like just fully in the country.
I think I'm probably very similar in that. Okay, so what are some different transport systems in various countries? We can start with China. So what was the main system of transport in China?
In Xi'an, we primarily used buses because those were the closest thing and the most easiest to access public transportation. There was a metro system, a public metro system, but there was no stations or in the complexes that we lived in. Though what's funny is after every time we moved to a complex, they built a train station right there. It's just kind of funny, but I never I don't remember ever taking the metro system in Xi'an specifically, but I remember all the different type of buses. They had double-decker buses, they had small buses, they had those accordion buses. I do remember taking the metro system in Beijing, and it is so crowded, but it's so incredibly advanced and really fast and awesome and quiet that I don't know, it's really cool compared to Tbilisi, which is a loud, old, cranky metro system.
Tbilisi Metro is special.
It is very special. It's very Soviet based, but it's awesome. But I fear for everyone's ears when in the metro system.
Actually, I think Malia's dad once recorded how loud the sound was, and when he brought it home to check, it was, what was it?
Its highest point was like 130. Okay, and there's a certain amount, like, if it was that for like 15 seconds straight, it would damage your hearing.
But thank goodness it's only like that.
You
for
also
2
the
seconds.
taxis in China. You would take buses, but mostly
That's
taxis, and they were yellow and green when they're going short distances. They're blue and white when they're going longer distances.
Yeah, I forgot
the other colors, but
and there were different colors depending on the city. I know Beijing had different colors, and I know Chiang Mai. I remember always walking out of the airport, and there were pink ones, and there were blue ones, and there were green ones,
Yes.
and it was the funniest thing because I always, like, in Xi'an, it was taxis that are this way, and then in walking to Chiang Mai, I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
It's
I remember
multicolored.
walking out of. I don't particularly remember doing that in Chiang Mai, but I remember walking out of the airport in different cities in China and just noticing the different colors of taxis. So I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah. I forgot
Okay,
about
so in Thailand, what were some of the ways that got around the city?
the public transportation system in Chiang Mai, I don't think it, to how I remember, I don't think it comprised of a metro system or buses, but there were two main public transport systems, and one was a tuk-tuk, which is kind of like a three-wheeled motorcycle. If you look up TUK, you will be able to find images, and it's basically, there's one seat in the front with a little like handlebar, steering wheel, and then there's two seats in the back where you and your people would sit, and you would go around the city for pretty cheap. And there's also other types where they longer ones, bigger ones, but my absolute favorite ones were what were they called? Songtaos, and they were kind of like buses. There's these giant red trucks where instead of having like a cargo space in the back, it was a very long bench on both sides that you would sit down, and you were able to take so many people on one. Yeah.
It's a very Thai way of doing things. There is an open back. There are no doors. There's no seat belts. I think sometimes for shorter distances, there would be people standing on the back of them, holding onto the back. So this is not an American way of traveling, but we used it a lot.
But I just remember so many memories in those. Those were they were everywhere. Such an awesome experience going on. If you ever go to Thailand, make sure to ride in a Song Tao.
They're very easily recognizable. Just look for the red trucks.
And there's also yellow ones, but the red ones are the most popular ones. There's a form of I would say in Uber. It's called Grab. So we took those a lot too.
Okay, so in Georgia, I guess we already kind of talked about it a bit, but what is the form of public transport?
they have lots of buses here and a metro system, and that's basically what everybody takes. There's also online app to get taxis and stuff.
like Uber, it's called Bolt, I think.
Yeah,
you can get pretty much anywhere in the city with their public transport system of buses or metros.
Since the metro is so small, it sometimes can be really crowded.
Yeah,
so
for
are
sure.
the buses, and
Yeah, there are two lines in the metro system. There's one for the first line, which comprises of I'm not sure how many stops, but it's the majority of them. And then there's the Sabertalo line, which is kind of like the newer, more fancier part of the city, and it is a shorter kind of metro system. They're both really loud.
They're both loud.
Comparatively, the buses are extremely quiet, and they're really nice. They have specific lanes in the road where only buses can go, and
Theoretically, only buses can go.
Buses and taxi drivers. At some points, they design roads so horribly where it takes forever to actually get a bus to the next part of the street. But like, the bus system is really reliable and nice, and they are nice buses comparatively to the metro system.
Although we love the metro system. Do you have any specific fears that you feel like come with living in a city, particularly a city where you don't speak the native language?
People yelling at me.
That's true. I've heard a lot of people talk about that, especially some of the older grandmothers who maybe speak Russian. I have a friend who's always talking about the Russian ladies who are yelling at her and how she'll pretend to not speak Russian. But yeah, I guess my main fear is for me getting lost. I'm so bad with directions, and especially in Georgia where Google Maps is not always accurate.
That's for sure.
And directions are not always clear. And I am not good at directions. I think I already said that. But yeah, getting lost is one of my main fears for being in a city.
I would say that I feel like I would have more fears in living in Tbilisi rather than Xi'an, because in Xi'an, especially before, you were a foreigner, you were white, it was a weird culture. Like, people would always want to take pictures with you, because you were different than them. So you felt kind of like this, you just felt safer in a way, because like at 9, I was riding my bike to the mall by myself with another friend, or like you didn't worry about it because you knew it was a safe place. And I'm not sure about Chiang Mai. I never went anywhere on my own in Chiang Mai because there wasn't the option to. But in Tbilisi, I would say it's relatively safe, though there are some things that can happen,
Yeah.
like
I think compared to a lot of the big cities in America, Tbilisi is actually really, really safe.
Yeah.
Like, my sister and I, we can go around the city pretty much by ourselves, and that's a freedom I don't think we would have if we were living in America.
yeah, same.
When you're in a city, how do you find ways to appreciate and be in nature? Is it hard for you to not have nature around you? I know for our family, it's really important for us to be in and appreciate nature. I remember in China, when the pollution cleared up or when we could see far enough, my mom would even have us stand and she's like, look far. And so we'd like stand and try to use our eyes to look as far as we possibly could. And I don't think that's specifically correlating to nature, but just recognizing the difficulties of living in a city and wanting to take the opportunities we can to be in nature. And I think wherever we've lived, we had opportunity to go to botanical gardens, and we try to work that into our schedule.
Yeah, for sure. I know in Xi'an, we would always try to go up to the mountains as much as possible, because it was really beautiful up there. As well as whenever we visited other cities like Shanghai, we would go explore the mountains or go to the zoos and stuff. But in Tbilisi, I would say it has more nature in it than China or Xi'an.
Yeah.
And they have the botanical gardens, and there's parks that are filled with nature and trees and stuff.
Yeah.
But there's also mountains. There's like we've said before on other episodes, there are beautiful mountains all around Tbilisi, and they're not that far away. So, and during the winter when you can ski, or during the summer when you can just go up there and just have a picnic or just gaze upon the rest of the country, it's awesome.
It's one thing I really appreciate about all the places we live in is I can remember like putting trees in between roads, or just finding ways that the city would put greenery where it might not always be there. And I don't know, my mom and I, we love moss, and so we're always looking for moss. Like, you can find moss anywhere, There's moss growing on that drain down our road. And
Ew.
my mom took some home and put it in a jar. So just finding green to bring back into your house, or
That's awesome.
yeah, like putting houseplants around the house, or
Yeah, that's true.
I love spider plants. Do you have any stories about getting lost, Noah?
The first time I went to my language lesson in Tbilisi, I wanted to go to the Open Door Center, and I was like, Dad and Mom, I'm going to take the metro system instead of taking a Bolt. And my dad was like, yeah, I took it yesterday. You basically go on one and just for 2 stops, and then you get off. And I had, this was when I was like, oh, I'm never gonna ever figure out how the public transportation system works. So I went to Station Square, which is like the transition line between the first line and the Sabertalo line. And the signs were really confusing because it listed both lines on each side. So I went to the first line and I took 2 stops, and I ended up getting out, and it wasn't that far. I ended up being like a 40-minute walk from Open Door Center. It was like a 10-20 minute bus ride, but like a 40-minute walk.
So you went on a completely different line than
Yeah.
you're supposed to?
Yeah, I was
Sweet.
so and then my phone was about to die, and I didn't know how to do the public transportation system, and I didn't know how to transfer and stuff. So I got really nervous. So I just walked to Open Door Center, and I was like 20 minutes late to my class.
Only 20 minutes? Wow.
It's not okay. It wasn't that bad, but I left early and I didn't want to take a bolt or anything. And it was actually, I'm kind of glad that happened because it was a learning experience as well. But yeah, I got lost, and I mean, I eventually found my way back because I had my phone and maps and stuff. But yeah, that was like probably the only time I've ever been lost in a city.
Okay, welcome, Kai. He's gonna share.
One story that we have, it's not necessarily about being lost or anything, but it was just a stressful moment. It was one youth group night. We were at someone's house. It's like a 40-minute trip back from their house. Like now we can do it in like 40 minutes because you take the bus, you get to the metro, and then you go down to our house. But that was like, it was in our first few months having moved here, and we were just took bolts everywhere, which is like just taxis. So we were trying to order a Bolt, but my data had run out on my phone. So I'm like, I can't do it. I can't text Dad. I can't do anything. Hey, Malia, I need your phone. Her dad is about to run out too. So we're doing everything we can. We're trying to order a Bolt. I think we got one ordered, and we were like down waiting with everyone at the bus station because we were just going to have the Bolt driver come to the bus station. And we're running out of data. I feel like I might have gotten one last message to Dad saying, hey, my dad is about to die. Can you figure something out? And then he must have called us, and we didn't recognize his number, so we just assumed it was the Bolt driver. Okay, maybe the Bolt driver called us, and then we assumed it was the Bolt driver calling again. We're just like, what do we do? So our friend's just like, hey, I speak Russian here, and so we give the phone to him, and he's just running off in Russian, and then Dad's voice comes through. He's just like, hello. Where's Malia? And then our friend's just like, oh, shoot, here, give it back. And Dad was super confused why some Russian guy had stolen Malia's phone, or, we had no idea what was going on, but it was, it was a
funny experience.
And I got over my terror of the metro station after that. So.
Yep. Okay, so anything else you guys would like to add?
No, not necessarily, besides the fact that big cities are pretty cool.
Big cities are cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Jetlagged Podcast. We hope that you'll join us next week. And if you have any comments or questions, you can send them to jetlaggedpodcasts@gmail.com. Again, that's jetlaggedpodcasts@gmail.com. Bye.